Hi, you guys. My name is Nick Rocz, and I live in New York City. I used to live in Los Angeles for a really long time, and over my career, I have done theater, music, operas, film, television, radio. I've worked behind stage, I've worked in front of the stage, I've worked on the stage. If you name it, if it's happened in a theater, I've probably put my finger somewhere in there. So it's something that I love. I've been doing it for a very long time, and I'm very passionate about it. So today, we are going to talk a little bit about directing and what that means and how it is that we can do that. So let's talk about it. First off, when you're directing a show, you need to have a product. You need to have a story that you're going to tell. Okay? The story is the most important thing. Everything that you do as a director always goes back to, is this telling the story? And the nice thing about being a director is sometimes you can read a story, and you know how when maybe one friend tells a story and another friend tells the story, but you were there, so when you hear both friends tell the story, they're a little bit different? That's because each person, when they see the world and they retell it, they've got their own viewpoint, right? They see the world through their own eyes, and then they relay it based on what it is that they saw and how they interpret it. You as the director get to do exactly the same thing. Sometimes we get a play and lots of people have directed that show, and it's been told, that story's been told several times, but you feel very passionate about telling it yourself. Now, when you do that, you get to do your own thing. It never has to be the same way that everybody else did it. It could be completely different. That's the cool thing about being the director, is you're like, I'm the head of the ship, and however and wherever you want to sail that ship, you get to do it that way. So enjoy a little bit of the freedom. Now, sometimes too much freedom, meaning like too big of an idea, can be a little overwhelming, right? Because you start to ask yourself, well, where do I start? I always recommend start with the story. Start with the thing that it is you're having to tell, right? You need to read that about 158,000 times, okay? You read it once just to enjoy it. You read it again because you're looking for something. You read it again and again and again and again. You will find that you, the director, you may not necessarily remember as the director every single line, but you will know that story inside and out better than anybody else, right? Better than anybody, because you've read it so many times and you've worked each section so many times that you yourself, you're inundated in it just as much as any performer, okay? So it always seems daunting, especially if you're not like a big fan of like sitting down and reading, but welcome to the theater. We do a lot of reading, okay? So buckle up and get ready to turn a page. So you need to start off by reading it. What I do is I have a system that I do that typically takes a bit of time, because I like to be very prepared. Okay, number one, read your story. Number two, get prepared. All right, the people who you are expected to lead need to know that you know what you're talking about and what it is that you want. Nothing worse than dealing with a director who comes in and says, well, I don't know. Let's see what happens. Well, let's see what happens means nothing's going to happen. You're going to have a bunch of people reading the lines off the page who don't know where to walk, who don't know where to go, and have no real idea how to tell the story. And then what ends up happening is they all start to self-direct. You're not saying that right. You didn't do what I was told to do. Oh, and then anarchy, right? You, the director, have to keep it all together. So to prepare, what I do is I pick a team that I can really trust, okay? You need your assistant director if you can get one. If you're not able to have an assistant director, you got to make sure that the next person next to you is a strong stage manager, okay? A stage manager is somebody that'll sit down and they might write out all the blocking. Like if you're a director and you're saying, oh, no, move stage left, go up stage right center, cross through downstage left, hang out a minute by the lamppost, and then you're going to go off left, right? You may say all these things, and in the moment of passion, you don't write it down. Well, your stage manager, that is one of their jobs. A stage manager probably has more jobs than any person. I think more so even than the director. So picking the right one is a really big deal, right? Because that person is with you every step of the way. They help you communicate between yourself and other team members. They help you communicate between yourself and your cast, right? The other actors. They help you communicate with the theater or space that it is that you are performing in, because they are the ones that go in first and set everything up and tear everything down. They literally manage the stage. They make sure that everything that happens inside the theater and on stage, they have complete control over. You, the director, just have the artistic vision of how it's going to be told. And then you have to trust that your stage manager is going to make sure that nobody changes anything when you leave. Oh, nothing like leaving, right? You go on a quick trip or got another job, and then you go back to see your project and it's totally different. Stage manager is the one that gets real trouble for that. So be nice to your stage manager. And when they say 5 minutes to places, can you all please say thank you 5? It just lets them know that you heard the information, and it spreads it to those that might not have. Anyway, quick little tip. So to get prepared, you got to read the story. Right? You got to know what it is you're talking about. You have to find your climax of the piece, right? What is the big moment where everything after is really just you resolving, right? Tying up those loose ends. That climax is going to be really important because it'll help you, the director, figure out where it is that you're driving, right? What is the point? If the climax for you is in a different position than, say, other directors have done it, that's okay, as long as you can justify it. And what I mean by justifying it is when you have your script, everything that you do, every choice that you make should be able to be supported by the text that you have in front of you. The writers have spent lots of time poring over what is the right way to say it. Where do I want that comma? And I know when I'm an actor, sometimes I make it so difficult because sometimes you're going, well, it doesn't make sense when you look at it that way. I want to say it this way. But here's the lesson we all really got to learn. It's not about you. It never has been about you. It will never be about you. You know how famous people get famous? Because they make it about the work and about everybody else in the room, right? If I support my friend and I support them full-heartedly, you know what ends up happening? People go, wow, did you see that person support that other character on stage? So the same thing with directing. It isn't about you. It's not your show. When you walk in, what you need to do is make the actors really be empowered, right? Make it about those other people. And they, in turn, will hopefully make it about the person next to them and not about them. And if we constantly make this story about something other than ourselves, our own ego, we don't want to see those persons, those people that stand in the middle of the stage and like, look at me, right? Nobody wants to watch those people. Those are very self-congratulative people. You want to see the person that's invested in what's going on. And we as human beings, we do that. We watch, we listen, we react. Even when we don't have a line, we can still be alive. Directors' jobs keep all those little pieces happening. Okay? So to get prepared, you got to find a good stage manager. I know I'm going on a lot of tangents, but I'm trying to make everything really concise. So forgive me if I go a little too fast. You can always reach back, and I can always do a video on clarification if that's needed. All right? Once you get your stage manager, the next thing that you want to do if you're doing a musical is you want to get your music director and you want to get your choreographer. And you, the director, should have a vision for what it is that you're trying to tell, right? One time I did Hamlet, yeah. And I wasn't directing, I was just performing in it. But the director really had this vision of this dystopian, meaning like kind of broken society outside. And it was kind of funny. We had a lot of long leather jackets and cool glasses and things like that. And a lot of people thought we were doing the theme from The Matrix on top of Hamilton. Or I mean, of Hamilton. And anyway, it didn't always receive that well because, the concept that they came up with was a little convoluted. It had a lot of really cool effects, but not necessarily what you want to choose as a through line, right? There was no through line for that. So the concept became bigger than the actual words on the page. And we always got to go backwards to the words on the page. How do we make those the most important thing? Because that's the story we're telling. Okay? So once if you're doing a musical, you get your music director and your choreographer, you need to explain to them your thoughts and your feelings, okay, about the piece. What I like to do is I break the show down into scenes, and then each scene I might break down a little bit more if I feel like I need to. right? Because the smaller you break things down for you, the director, the easier it is to explain step by step. It also helps you then take each of those scenes and maybe you've got a sentence you can write for yourself that really says, this is what this scene is about. And when you've broken it on down, you should be able, I mean, it won't make grammatical sense, but it should make sense to you when you remove the words and you just look at your sentences that you might have written for each scene, just to sort of tell you what it's about. They should all make sense, right? And it should definitely indicate where that climax is in your piece. Okay, the next thing that you need to do, right, after you've explained to your choreographer and your music director, is you got to figure out how to audition people. I'm here to tell y'all, I know auditions, they're nerve-wracking, right? You're outside in this hallway. You've probably been preparing for at least a night, right? Because sometimes we don't know about the audition until right the day before, sometimes even the day of. But either way, from the moment we've decided in our head that we're going to do this audition, we get those little butterflies and we get those nervous feelings, and we work and we work and we work, and then we go to a place that is probably a little different than we're used to, and then we have to wait and wait and wait out there, and we're afraid to ask questions because we don't want to be a problem person, and you don't want to be too loud because then you're too loud. You got to be nice to everybody. It's kind of nerve-wracking. And then you walk into the room and there's all these people that you don't know sitting at a table staring at you. And sometimes they're not even staring at you. Sometimes they're, they got some piece of paper and they're just, and they're eating a sandwich or something, right? And some of them don't look happy. Well, here's the thing. Here's the secret, the little tip, right? If you're not a director and you're listening to this, even better, right? Because here's what's really going on. All those people that are sitting at the table, they are secretly thinking in their head, please, oh please, be the answer to my problem. That's what they want. They want you to be the answer, right? Because here's the thing. When I've got to cast a whole show, each character is a problem, right? I got to find people who play all of these human beings that have been written, or sometimes animals, creatures, or whatever, that's been written into your show. And I'm really worried that I'm not going to find the right person. So each time somebody comes in, I'm thinking in my head, oh, I hope you make this easy for me and are exactly one of the people that I'm thinking of casting, so that my life is a little easier. So if you ever see somebody looking, bitter or upset, they're not mad at you. They're not mad at anything. What they're thinking in their head is, how can I solve this problem? It's so funny. You think back to it when I used to audition a lot, and if I really would have understood that, I probably wouldn't be as nervous as I used to get going in front of auditions. Because everybody's just trying to work together. So after you do auditions and you pick your cast, right, then you want to sit with your cast and you want to do what's called a read-through. A read-through is where everybody sits around in a circle and you've got your choreographer and you've got your music director. And a lot of times what I like to do is I like to include the people on my tech staff, the people who do lights and sound and work backstage. I like to include everybody. That way we can all hear the cast read the show straight through, right? Your stage manager will read your stage directions and any kind of direction like that that's in parentheses in a script, and everybody else obviously reads their parts. You might want to take a little intermission if it's a big show. If it's a short show and you can do it all together, even better. But, you want to make sure that it is a real read-through. You want to feel things. People should laugh. People should cheer. I mean, it's supposed to be fun, right? Because remember, at the end of the day, no matter what kind of version it is, it's called a play. Okay, so you got to make sure to remember to play. I mean, you can have too much fun and then not do work that you should be doing, because it still is work, but it is a play. So remember to, play a little bit. Okay, let's see. You do your read through, you go through, you give some notes. Maybe there's some things where you think, you said it this way, and I want you to say it another way. Now here's a tip, right? Here's a secret tip from what I do when I direct. There are times when I will tell an actor, I need you to say something specifically this way, right? But that is my 100% last resort. What I really want to do is go up to an actor and say, hey, tell me what it is you're thinking about when you read this line, right? Find out what their subtext is, what's happening underneath, their words. And if it doesn't sound like your actor is conveying what it is you want them to say, then ask them questions. guide them. You as the director are not a dictator. You are directing people where to go. You're like the people at Disney that tell everybody where to walk, right? Now, sometimes those people and you might have to be a little bit louder than you want to be. And that's okay. Sometimes people need different ways of you to do things for them to understand it. Like sometimes you can be really nice and you can go up and you can say, oh my gosh, that was so good. If you could just do it completely different, that would be amazing, right? And sometimes you've got to yell. Sometimes you've tried things, and when you yell, very important, when you yell, it needs to be for a reason, right? Human beings don't respond well to being yelled at. So if you're the kind of director that needs to inspire passion from somebody, that is a last resort tool, okay? Mainly you want to allow actors to do their job, which is to create the characters on their own and then bring them to you, with multiple choices, right? Some of you actors, you like to come in and you're like, I know what I'm doing and it's perfect. It might not, and it probably isn't perfect because it was the first time you tried it, right? So have a few choices, and that way you can try something new, right? Me as a director, a lot of times I'll say, hey, that was really good, but let's try it completely different just to see what happens, right? And I may have a completely different idea, and I just want to see if it works, right? I'm not looking to take away from you. I'm looking to see if this different idea or different way of doing it makes sense. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. After you do your read through, and I typically do this before, but it sort of depends on how much time you have in your project. You need to go and you need to block the scenes. I call it a rough blocking before you get into the theater. You should be able to walk in to your space with your performers and already have an idea as to what set pieces are going to be where and how the actors need to move around it. Now, of course, a million different things can happen in a million different ways, and sometimes it doesn't work out where you know what your stage looks like. Sometimes you have no idea until relatively soon to when audiences will see it. That's okay. It's frustrating, but it's okay. Art will never go in a systematic ABCD way every time because it's art and it's living. It'll always change in different ways. So you should go in and have an idea of this character needs to enter at this time from this side of the stage. They need to cross down here. This is where they're going to have that interaction, and then they go. Now here's another trick, okay? It's called a triangle. Real easy. Triangle. Boop, 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 right? However we do it on the screen. Here's the thing about a triangle. When you're trying to make a stage look interesting, right? Visually pleasing. We don't want to do anything as a director that's interesting for the sake of interesting, because again, you have to go back and ask yourself, is that telling the story that was on the page? And if it's not, and you were just doing it because you thought it would be fun, then you got to justify it. And sometimes that's hard to do, okay? But if you're trying to make a stage look pleasing to the eye, don't have everybody stand in one line. Have one person stand a little in front or a little behind. And there are different kinds of triangles, as I'm sure you all know from school, right? So make different triangles all over the stage, and then that way you're able to cover a little bit more of the actual scene that you're in. The actual stage, you'll have different people in different places, and it gives people a chance to move around, to really live in the scene. Now, of course, if you have two people and they're talking to each other, sometimes they're just going to walk up and they're going to talk to each other face to face, right? You want them to cheat out a little bit, which means you want them to turn a little bit out to the audience so that we can see their face. But, every rule is meant to be broken, and there's always room to make new rules. So, a lot of it really is up to you, but that triangle will help you. And it doesn't have to be on the same plane, meaning if you have like a block or something in the back and somebody's standing up there and then you've got two people down, well, that's already a triangle, right? So you don't have to have a triangle be the same way, but it will help you cover the stage and not make the stage look so much bigger than the actual people. It allows them really to fill what we call filling the space, right? And it'll give you, the director, some control as to how that's done, okay? Let me think. So you stage this thing, you gotta have to rehearse it a million times. And please, if you're a director, give your actors a chance to create and try things out. It's not always going to go right. It's not always going to go perfect. But directors, even though we have been with the product, the play for a longer time, we don't know everything. And any help that you can get is going to be helpful. So if you have an actor who says, I really want to try something, and you have the time to do that, let them try it, because you may discover that they are completely on top of what it is that they need to do, and you may not have even thought of it, right? And so if they do something neat and amazing and you're like, whoa, my mind is blown, you never would have had that beautiful gift from that actor had you not allowed them to try. All right, so allow that to happen. Now, after you do your rehearsals, right? You're going to run through these things. I like to set dates for people. I like to say, and for you, for these projects that you're doing, it might not be dates, it might be time, right? Maybe you only have 2 hours to put it together. I don't know. However it is you're doing it, but schedule when they need to be off book, right? That way, everybody off book means all of your lines are memorized. So set that in the schedule. And I like to make a schedule, and I like to tell my cast, hey, this schedule will tell you what days we're doing what scenes. Everything is broken down. That way the performers know what to be ready for when you're meeting. But I also tell them everything can change. And it can change like that, right? So really, to kind of cap this video off, this particular one, as you're telling the story, every step that you take, every person that you include, make sure that they all are telling the story, because that's really the biggest job that you've got. All right? So we're going to end for this video, we're going to end on that one. All right? And the next video that I'm going to send, we're going to talk about a couple other things, right? To make a little bit of magic happen inside your show. All right? Bye, guys. We'll see you next time.